The Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the Clarity Act are the two catalysts that most people believe Bitcoin needs before exploding higher. Well, this week we did get an update on the SBR, and then yesterday an insider at the CFTC just revealed what and who is blocking the Clarity Act. So let's watch the clip. I will break this down for you guys. We did get some more updates on this morning, so a lot to unpack here with the Clarity Act, but let's watch the CFTC chair, Mike Selig, on the Clarity Act.
We're so close. We have to get this done. It's absolutely critical that we have federal standards for crypto assets. And right now, we've dealt with a patchwork of state laws and regulations, and it's really been bad for business here in the United States. We want to get this done so that we have certainty, clarity, and consumer protection. Should be a bipartisan issue. We've got to get it across the line.
I mean, is it that the Democrats are stopping the progress because of ethics issues and trying to get specific language in there about President Trump and his family in crypto?
Well, there's certainly some mission creep beyond what's really critical here. We want to set standards and protect consumers, protect investors, and that's something that Democrats and Republicans should be able to get behind. I do think there's a little bit of this creep into ethics and other types of extraneous issues, and they're just derailing this real opportunity to have a bipartisan bill in place. Otherwise, you end up with regulators like me writing all the rules, and I'm sure all the Democrats would prefer to get something in place that's bipartisan.
Okay, so let's read between the lines. And I think I have to do the Nico caveat, even though he's not here. You know, it's not a monolithic entity on the left. The Democrats aren't a monolithic entity, and I will unpack that a little bit. But paraphrasing a little bit here, again, reading between the lines, CFTC chair Mike Selig basically just said it's the Democrats that are derailing the Clarity Act. And we've been covering this for a while. We've seen a lot of breadcrumbs, you know, a trail of this happening. And I think as we get closer to these Clarity Act deadlines, I do have basically the best update on what the schedule looks like for the Clarity Act. We can all pinpoint one group of people. And again, I will give Nico credit for this. I think he was the first one to basically say it. It seems like it's the Elizabeth Warren camp that is really holding up the Clarity Act. Now, whether you like it or not, whether we really even know what's in the Clarity Act yet, like we've heard some ideas. There's been a lot of talk of what's going to go in. It's really not a, quote, Bitcoin bill. There's a couple of things that might be good for Bitcoiners, but overall, personally, it doesn't seem like the best bill in general. Excuse me. I got to really stop drinking water right before I start the show. But it does, I think, would be one of the catalysts forcing a lot of capital enter into the market for the most part. And I think this is probably where the conversation lies, is for the most part, when investors, when people that are looking to allocate capital look at Bitcoin, they still view it as this Wild West thing. It's still like gun-ho. There's no laws over there. You know, I know it's not going away, but it's also, I don't feel that comfortable investing a significant amount of capital into that space, into that, quote, industry yet. Yes, there's been some front runners, some early adopters, aka like the BlackRocks and the Morgan Stanleys and the Goldman Sachs and Charles Schwab, etc. They planted their flags. They're like, this thing isn't going away. We need to launch these products now. But for the majority of people, they still look at what we're doing over here as just like magic internet money. It's still the Wild West. Like I said, it's still just filled with criminals and fraudsters and scammers, which, to be fair, they're not totally wrong in regards to the entire crypto ecosystem. But they're waiting for the rules to come out before, at least that's what everyone's saying. There's I forget what the numbers were, billions, trillions of dollars waiting on the sidelines for when the Clarity Act passes. At least that is the common rumor here. At least personally, as someone just tweeted me on Twitter, you know, I will lean into, hey, I would love for that to happen. I am falling in the fooled me once, shame on you, can't fool me again camp, where I'm like, look, I've heard this before. We've been hearing this for years, that the institutions are just waiting to get into Bitcoin. They're going to save the bear market. What year is it? I think we were rehashing these ideas in like 2020. took 5-6 years for that to happen. So at this point, if it does happen, if this is the catalyst for a lot of capital to come into Bitcoin, then hey, I'm totally okay with them pumping our bags. All right. You know, I want number to go up. And as I was saying on Twitter, I've been saying it on the show, I'm very transparent on that. Yes, I want number to go up. It's not the only thing I care about, but something and someone has to fund the revolution. And guys, we can't be broke here. We can't be broke revolutionaries. We've seen this play out in the past. It doesn't end well for us, all right? We need capital. We need to have some working capital to really change the world. And I think that's why everyone that are tentatively bullish on the Clarity Act even care about it. That's probably why we're talking. That's why I'm talking about it. I'm like, okay, look, this is what people are saying. People are waiting for the Clarity Act to go through. We know this is one of the big headlines. We know we've been waiting for 6 months or something for it to get through. They've been deliberating over the particular words. Keeps getting delayed. Now we are getting to the point where basically if it doesn't get passed by August, it's probably not going to happen. But anyways, enough rambling about the context of why this even matters. Again, what did he say in that clip? The CFTC chair. There's actually two things that he said. One, the Democrats are derailing this. He didn't in particular pinpoint anyone, which is probably a political tool. And wow, I'm blanking on what my second point was. Anyways, it'll come back to me. Who exactly is it? Again, he didn't say it in particular, but we did get a recent update this morning in regards to this, and it really shines light on exactly what is going on with the Clarity Act and what is stalling it. So here's the clip, and then lo and behold, look at what we saw on Twitter this morning. The one and only Elizabeth Warren chimes in on Twitter going, as currently drafted, the Clarity Act is a ticket to sanctions evasion. Not sanctions evasion. And she's quoting a headline here from Fortune, which goes, former Iran director at NSC says crypto legislation is a ticket to sanctions evasion. Not the dirty S word. Elizabeth Warren is here to protect you, the customer. She's here to protect, the investor. We need customer protection. The ethics. The Bitcoin and crypto space is just full of scammers here. Oh no, we must protect democracy, or whatever they're going to say next. Well, she's obviously misrepresenting what is actually in the Clarity Act. And shouts out to Senator Lummis, because she goes in, doubles down very quickly on Twitter, and she goes, we both want bad actors held accountable. The difference is I'm working on a solution. You're shouting into the void, hoping the status quo fixes itself. Section 303 enables new crypto sanctions on Iran. Section 305 lets exchanges stop illicit funds before they reach North Korea. So going back to it, Clarity Act as drafted is a ticket to sanctions evasion. Senator Lummis very clearly shows that literally what is in the Clarity Act is the opposite of what Elizabeth Warren is saying. So she's out here, doing the same thing she always does, just playing political tools, obviously, and saying, look, this is going to be very bad. This is going to unleash more chaos than we've ever seen before. Like, there's nothing in the Clarity Act that does what I want it to do. And Senator Lummis is like, actually, there literally is. It's literally there already. And yet the facts don't matter here. It's really about, perception. But I do want to see. All right. So Senator Lummis got 58,000 views, 2.1K likes. Let's see. Senator Elizabeth Warren, 200,000 views, 138 likes. Now, obviously, doesn't really mean much. But the point I was going to make is before I even saw the numbers, knew that Elizabeth Warren's post would get more eyes. And that's really what we're dealing with here. It's not so much about who has the facts. It's about who can get their message broadcasted to more eyes. So Elizabeth Warren's still on that front. And as we've been covering, we've been seeing, again, a trail of this happening. Most of the backlash around the Clarity Act passing has been coming from the Democratic Party. Now, again, not a monolith. I'm not here to necessarily pick sides, but it is coming out of the Elizabeth Warren camp. And remember, Elizabeth Warren heads the, I forget what it's called, the official term, but it's the Democratic Banking Senate or whatever. Maybe I should look that up for you guys. But she heads the banking committee for the Democratic side. So again, she's got a lot of pull. And this is why I think you're seeing a lot of Democrats either sit on their hands or actively fight the Clarity Act. Now, again, not all of them, but she has the pull in the party right now. Even though, I don't know if you guys are following along. I'm sure most of you guys are not really following along on politics in general. But there is a civil war going on right now on the Democratic Party between like the legacy Democrats that I would say is like the Obama, Elizabeth Warren camp, and the newer incumbents like the Mamdani Democratic Socialists of America camp. So there is a fight going on the left as well as on the right. I think everyone's heard about the MAGA civil war going on. There is a split going on. So it does look as if both of the two parties are having infighting that really, I think, adds to the uncertainty of what we are going to see, not just in the midterms, but what is going to happen with the Clarity Act in general. So, without a doubt now, confirm any hate that you see coming out of the Democratic Party around the Clarity Act is because they are in Elizabeth Warren's pocket or the banker's pocket. We all know Elizabeth Warren, built her platform on the Occupy Wall Street. I'm here to fight for the little man against the bankers. Somewhere along the way, in the last decade, it seems like her biggest lobbying group are in fact the very people that she quote unquote set out to fight against. Hey, just follow the money. You start to see where the interest lies. But going further, obviously, Senator Lummis goes in. This was a great tweet, and I think this really sums up what's going on. I don't know who this guy is, Alexander Grieve. I guess that Paradigm. Isn't that a shitcoin? No, sorry. We build and invest in the companies and ideas shaping the frontier. I don't know what that means, but he goes, it's nakedly obvious that the reason that all of this appeared out of nowhere the past 48 hours is that the Clarity Act is on the precipice of enactment and Team Warren is pulling out all the stops to stop it. In this case, viciously assassinating the career and character of a longtime ally. Quote, with friends like these, of course, who needs enemies? Team Warren's view is that if only they can hold off regulation long enough, there will be a financial crisis, and then they can get their way. These, quote, consumer protection advocates are only too happy to sacrifice said consumers at the altar of their ivory tower goddess. Banger tweet. Absolutely banger tweet. Now, again, as I've been saying, this isn't a monolith on the left. So, I don't really care what your political parties are. I'm not blue versus red. I am orange versus green. That's what this is all about. Yes, we will use the status quo of the political divide to get what we want. I mean, hey, we're playing politics after all. We got to take our own side after all, okay? Don't hurl your tomatoes all at once. But Eleanor Tarrant goes and tweets some breaking news. Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, is asking Senate leaders to preserve the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act as passed by the Senate Banking Committee in any version of the Clarity Act brought to the floor. It comes amid uncertainty over whether certain key law enforcement groups will accept the BRCA language and whether changes will be needed to win their support, as well as the votes of other Democrat senators like Senator Cortez Masto and Mark Warner. In a letter to Thune and Schumer, Wyden says the provision would codify existing federal policy by clarifying that non-custodial software developers should not be treated as money transmitters solely for publishing software, while preserving the DOJ and FinCEN's ability to pursue illicit actors. Wyden was the Democrat co-sponsor of the standalone BRCA legislation in the Senate alongside Senator Lummis. So this does confirm two things. One, obviously, not a monolith on the Democratic Party. There are some Democratic politicians that are in favor of the Clarity Act, are in favor of some of the provisions that are in the Clarity Act, and there is bipartisan support for the Clarity Act. But a lot of the push that we are seeing right now, a lot of the, how do I say it? I don't want to say conspirators here, but a lot of the gaslit conversation going on Twitter right now, I would argue is coming out of the Elizabeth Warren camp. And we've had multiple examples of this, multiple data points to prove this point. Elizabeth Warren is not a fan of Bitcoin, as we know, with the anti-crypto army, really bad, marketing that she did last year. They're hell bent on this. But I think it's the timing that is most interesting here. And I've just realized I've been harping on timing a lot on the show recently, that it's not so much that these stories are coming out, it's why and when they are coming out. And I think this tells us a lot about where the Clarity Act stands. We have been hearing a lot of the pro-Clarity Act conversation, particularly from Senator Lummis. We've heard Scott Bessent, even Trump himself talk about it. We heard CFTC chair, SEC chair, and other politicians basically saying like, no, look, Clarity Act is close. There is bipartisan support, but at the same time, you're seeing the pushback from the Elizabeth Warren camp and saying like, no, this cannot pass at all, which to me is saying that even though I've been cynical on the Clarity Act passing, it might actually be closer than we expect. It might actually get through. Like I think I don't know what the odds are. I don't really look at the polymarket odds or the betting odds much, but just from the sentiment, from the narrative trench warfare that I'm seeing right now, it makes me feel as if the Warren camp is getting extremely desperate because they know that they're on the losing side. And so they're trying to do one last mega push before things actually start to get put into motion. Now, going into a little bit of the actual scheduling here and the timeline. Oh, wait, actually, one last thing. Shouts out to Alex Thorne, though. He makes a very interesting case here of Galaxy Research. And he goes, great to see Ron Wyden fight for the Debs. He was a co-sponsor of the standalone BRCA bill with Senator Lummis, but pro-BRCA does not mean he will vote yes on Clarity. On all prior major Senate crypto votes, he voted no. On the DeFi CRA, he voted no. On the Genius Cloture and the Genius Final vote, he voted no. So doesn't necessarily mean that him pushing the BRCA, protecting open source developers means he will, in fact, vote for the Clarity Act, because, again, the Clarity Act does need a couple of Democratic votes to officially get pushed through. So we're still up for debate. And he did go a good chart here. And he goes, our tracker updated as of January 2026. Only major one to add is the May 2026 Senate banking markup, where Senator Ruben Gallego and Senator also Brooks joined all Republicans to vote yes, but Wyden isn't on that committee. And you can see, who voted for what. It is kind of blurry and small, but we're tracking the politicians' votes here, guys. We are using the political machine to our favor. But anyways, getting back to the timeline. Oh, wait, I didn't pull it up. Sorry. Getting back to the timeline of the Clarity Act and really how close we are to the wire here. It is I don't want to say the final minute here, but like we're in the 11th hour in actually getting this passed. Now, if you understand a little bit of what is going on, I'm pretty sure there is a break right now, the July 4th break until the 13th. So we won't be seeing anything happen until after the 13th. But here's the best timeline I have for the best case scenario of this actually going through. Shouts out to Connor Kenny. Just one of these, Bitcoin news aggregators, and he goes, the Clarity Act is entering a pivotal stretch with several key milestones expected over the coming weeks. So July 13th, basically when the senators come back, basically when all of Washington, D.C. comes back from their July 4th break, through the 17th, the Senate procedural and final floor votes on the Clarity Act will happen. And then on July 20th to 24th, the House and Senate will work to reconcile the final bill, again, to get the Clarity Act through. We've seen a couple of things happen. It was the Senate Banking Committee and the Agricultural Committee. They combined to get the Clarity Act, to get the, final bill through. They had to agree on that bill. And now in about, what would that be? 11 days, the House and Senate will work to reconcile the final bill. They will debate what's going to go in the bill. And then we will finally get the official, the set in stone what will be in the bill. And then from July 27th to August 1st, if it's approved by Congress, President Trump is expected to sign it into law. This is the timeline that we will be watching here. This is the timeline that I want every single one of us to kind of stamp in our minds. If things do not progress I would say by the 17th, then that August 20th deadline is most likely not going to happen. And by that, I mean, August 20th, they take a couple of months break. They don't come, or a couple of weeks break. They don't come back until I believe it's sometime in September. And then by then it's the midterms. So we have what? Maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks? Maybe seven to really get this through. So look, the clock is ticking. If this does, I'm not going to say we, because I'm not a part of this. If the Clarity Act does not go through this timeline smoothly, if everything doesn't work in our favor, if the Elizabeth Warren camp doesn't get what they want, which is slowing this down, then as Senator Lummis says, and has continued to say, this is likely our last chance to get real legislation for digital assets on the books before 2030. If we fail to pass the Clarity Act, we are ensuring another country will write the rules for digital assets, and we spend the next decade catching up. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. So there's the breakdown of what's going on. Look, I don't care if you're a Democrat, and I'm like hurting your feelings right now. It is without a doubt confirm that it's the Elizabeth Warren faction of the Democratic Party that is stopping the Clarity Act. So if you are a Bitcoiner and you're still a Democrat, then you know who to send your angry letters to. Don't just, do the, hey, everything bad is Trump's fault, they're incompetent. It's like, no, we know where it's coming from. Of course, the Republican Party is not a monolithic entity either. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're doing all good, but we do know that it seems as if the Republican side of the aisle is very eager to get the Clarity Act passed. Now, again, there has been some dissent here. We do have some good Democratic politicians that see that this is a bipartisan bill, that this will, in fact, help everyone, and it's not a partisan thing. It's not just going to help Republicans. This is actually something that will help every single person of America. And further, I think the globe, just, I'm an American-centric person. But it's coming from Elizabeth Warren. Now, again, reminded of what I wanted to say on that initial clip is the CFTC chair said something that I said a while ago when I was being very cynical on the show in terms of the Clarity Act passing or not. And he said something on the lines of, look, if the Clarity Act doesn't pass, then the only regulatory clarity we're going to see is going to be coming from the SEC and the CFTC. And I'm like, wow, dude, like I might be catching on again on this political process here, since this is like all we do. It's macro and politics now at this point, because that's where Bitcoin currently is. Wait, no, it's macro, politics, Bitcoin treasuries, ETFs. That's all the big news. If we don't see the codification, if we don't see laws on the book that protect Bitcoin, that give businesses clear rules of the road, then we're just going to see everything come out of the CFTC and the SEC with their joint memorandum where they are working together to make sure that they are not doing, how do I always mess this up? Enforcement. Wow, dude, I have like a brain block when it comes to that saying. Policy by enforcement by regulation, I think it is. Or regulation by enforcement, I think it is. That all the clarity that we're going to see is just coming out of the SEC and the CFTC. Now, personally, because I don't fully know, well, rather, because we don't, and emphasis on we don't fully know what's going to be in the Clarity Act yet. And from what we've seen, it's turned into a monstrosity. I'm like, I might be just okay with the SEC and the CFTC being the only clarity we got. If they are more favorable to Bitcoin and Bitcoin companies, I mean, I'll take the little win at this point. But I think Senator Lummis does have a point here, where if the U.S. lags on this, as I literally said this yesterday, if the U.S. Monday, Tuesday? I don't know. I said it at some point this week that if the U.S. came out like they did in 2024 and said, look, we're going to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. We're going to have the best rules for Bitcoin. We're going to attract Bitcoin capital. We're going to attract Bitcoin entrepreneurs. And then they fail to get anything on the books. That's going to be one of the biggest fumbles we've seen in a while. Or further, you know, don't acquire any more Bitcoin. I'm like, dude, this is huge fumble. You can't go out and make this huge splash, get Bitcoin on everyone's radar, and then just lose the race. I'm like, yo, you guys are cooked. Politics is broken. I mean, I do believe politics is broken, but I'm like, you guys are literally fumbling the bag. Almost worse than Germany selling their bags, though. You know, Germany, I guess, got a consolidation here because if they bought back that much, they would have got, you know, I forget what it was, like $50 million they sold in Bitcoin. If they bought it back now, you know, their stack would be 2 times as big. It'd be a solid ass trade. I'm not gonna lie. But again, it's coming down to the wire. So hopefully, big hope for me personally, as the broadcaster, the streamer here, is that in 6 weeks, I was trying to do the math, in 6 weeks, we can finally put this to rest. We will no longer talk about the Clarity Act. I'm sure it'll get rebranded. If it fails, it'll turn into something else. But it'll be a few years before we are able to even bring this type of topic again. That personally is like maybe a negative hope here, you know, a little cynical hope. It's like, all right, man, I feel like this whole year I've been talking about the same 5 topics because that's what's been in the headlines the whole year. And I'm tired. I'm sure you're tired of talking about it. So it's coming to the wire. What, next week? When is the 13th? 4 days from now. Is that Tuesday? Would that be Tuesday? Hold on, let me pull up the. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was like, wait, did my stream die? 13. Oh, Monday. It would be Monday. So next week is going to be a big week here. From Monday to Thursday and Friday, we will have a definitive update on where we stand with the Clarity Act. From all the rumors we're hearing, it seems like there's bipartisan support. From the backlash from Elizabeth Warren's camp, it seems like maybe it's further along than all of us expect it to be. But again, every deadline that we've had so far has been blown through. We were supposed to get the verbiage on the July 4th weekend. Or rather, it was supposed to come out July 4th and we would get it on that following Monday. Nothing happened. So I guess maybe let's not hold our breath on this, but next week will be a big week in terms of where the Clarity Act actually stands. We're hearing a lot of good speculation, a lot of good rumors, a lot of good insider leaks basically telling us like, no, it's coming along, like it's there. It's got bipartisan support. It's about to pass. And then we are getting the equal and opposite force telling us like, this is bad. You know, this is going to fund terrorists and skirt sanctions. Like, you know, by default, actually, maybe I don't. Maybe I won't say the quiet part out loud. Maybe I won't indulge Elizabeth Warren here. But you know what I was going to say about the Bitcoin network in general and, you know, not having any borders. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think it's definitive, guys. Elizabeth Warren still actively fighting Bitcoin, still actively fighting the bill. Let's see if they got enough juice to actually kill it. What is interesting here, though, is remember last week, JP Morgan did come out and they're like, look, we're going to probably support this thing. Even though weeks ago they were attacking Coinbase and Brian Armstrong, I would argue that that slight soft capitulation is probably because they see the writing on the wall that this is probably going to go through. Now, again, I will eat the crow. I'll eat put my face in the cake here. I might be wrong on the fact that the Clarity Act is going to pass. Maybe I was just getting tired. I'm like, dude, the Clarity Act is cooked. We've seen it get punted like 7 times. At this point, do we even need it? It looks like maybe it'll be like Messi beating Egypt, 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. maybe that's what. Maybe we will see a miracle on Main Street. I don't know what Washington. I don't know what that Main Street is, but it might get through, guys. I guess if you are waiting for the Clarity Act, it's feeling a little bullish. Though, as I've been trolling, I'm kind of more bullish on the Clarity Act now, just because Elizabeth Warren is fighting it. The more she fights it, the more bullish I get on it. I'm just I don't even want to say a contrarian like that. I'm just a shit poster like that. The more Elizabeth Warren fights Bitcoin and Clarity Act, the more I'm like, yeah, let's get this through. Like, let's just do it. Meme magic is real. It's going to get through. I'm bullish on it. I mean, tentatively. All right. Anyways, I'm going to keep it moving. I do have a CZ clip. I know, forgive me, but I think there is a tidbit of wisdom in it. It does have, like, you know, price predictions in it, but there's a portion in there that I keep echoing and I keep talking about, and I just find it to be like the facts of the matter. And then we will change things up a little bit today. I'm going to have Theo from Bull Bitcoin come on and talk about DAC 8 and what's going on in Europe. There is some very interesting stuff going on in Europe that Bull Bitcoin is fighting against. So we're going to bring them on. We're going to give you guys the entire breakdown of what it is and what they're doing and what you can do. So that's today's show. I will be right back after our first commercial break. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns, paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. Before I go on, I do want to read this comment. Mr. Roboto goes, when will SB figure out clarity equals surveillance so it will pass? Honestly, I totally agree with this. And going further, Kudis 84 goes this. Both sides talking about how it works with sanction imposition, one of the tools that has screwed up money for little people all over the world, rather than using proper tools to deal with crime. I mean, I would say that is probably the truth of the matter here. Again, I've been saying, hey, I'd rather not have the Clarity Act, a bad bill pass versus nothing at all. At this point, I'm like, I still have the libertarianism in me with, like, more regulation. The R word, it scares me. I don't want regulations. Like, get away from me. But also, you know, the fiat maximalist, as a lot of people like to call me, I want to see number go up. All right. I'm falling for the psyop. It is what it is. Anyways. Current Bitcoin price is $62,680, which is a 50.3% discount from all-time high. The market cap is 1.26 trillion. Yo, it's like it just keeps fluctuating around that 1.25 trillion right now. The block height, TikTok next block, the only time that really matters, the only universal time on planet Earth, the truly universal time, not this UTC where I have to do math to get you know what my time zone is. Block height. 957,331. All right, guys. So, look. PSA context, you know, disclaimer. That's the word. Disclaimer. I am personally not the biggest fan of CZ in particular. You know, I think Binance is a shitcoin casino. I basically blame Binance for the 1010 crash. Actually, I don't even need to blame them. That's just the facts of the matter. Their stablecoin glitch is what nuked the market in 1010. I would say that Binance has probably been bad actors for a long time. You know, one saying like roll back the chain saga. Now I saw another clip of CZ basically saying like we should freeze Satoshi's coins or steal Satoshi's coins or something of that nature. I'm like, dude, like for being a billionaire and one of the biggest names in Bitcoin, well, really in shitcoin, like this guy still doesn't get what Bitcoin is. Like he still doesn't get what's going on here. You made a bag, but that doesn't mean you really understand what's going on. But it really goes into, you know, shitcoiners are Bitcoiners too. They just want your Bitcoin. Anyways, I just saw this clip. It's coming out of the block. It does have price prediction, so it is slightly bullish. I would say there's some bullishness in here, but there is one point in there about adoption globally and the numbers. And I would say coming from CZ, one of the biggest exchanges in the world, it does confirm what I've been saying that, look, I know it's tiresome and cliche now about saying like we're still early to this thing, but I think a lot of times we get ahead of our skis and we think that Bitcoin is a lot bigger than it actually is. Yes, there may be, I don't know, what are the numbers? Like 100 million plus people that hold Bitcoin around the world. But put in a different context, like there's really not that much capital that's in Bitcoin. Like there's still a lot of room to go. And it also kind of does destroy the diminishing return meme. So there's a couple of things in here that I do enjoy, which is why I'm playing it for you.
Super difficult. Yeah. I think you can predict a particular price, but I just don't know when. But 2033 is about 2 cycles away, right? So 2025 was like a bull market, 2029, 2030. So that's 2 cycles. The last cycle, I think we got disrupted by the war, the election, everything kind of, that was a weak cycle. That Bitcoin only went 2x. Previously, if done 10x in the 2017 cycle. If we go roughly by like 3 to 5x per cycle, it can get pretty close to $1 million. But this is pure speculation.
Yeah,
right? Like, yeah.
But are you surprised that it's been like diminishing returns every cycle? And do you think that's natural?
There's also some natural arguments for that. Well, there's some arguments for that's natural or valid. As the total market cap gets larger, the volatility decreases. So each rise may be less than the previous one. But I think the counter argument to that is Bitcoin is nowhere near saturated. The current people holding Bitcoin in terms of wealth is probably less than 1%. So we're not at a saturation point yet. So the demand for Bitcoin or for crypto in general can be significant. So I thought the last cycle was a bit weak. It was only 2x. Hopefully the next cycle fixes that. If the next cycle goes 5x, then you'd be like more than, I don't know, 60,000. 600,000, and then you only the next cycle after that, the 2033 cycle after that, only needs 2x to get to $1 million. Totally possible.
Yeah,
well, I'm not saying that it will happen. It's totally possible.
I think we'd all like to think it's going to happen, and more than anything, just accumulate as many sats as possible.
Yeah,
I love it, yo. Dude, I think we all need some bullishness injected into our veins. Inject the hopium into my veins. You know, put in that context, again, just on the price prediction aspects, it's like, man, you know, everyone just really doesn't get what this Bitcoin thing can do. We all have PTSD from the last, 5 years where like Bitcoin just doesn't do anything. We're back at 2021 highs. We're like, dude, it's never going to pump again. But the numbers aren't really that crazy. Again, no one ever thought it'd get to 100K. Well, everyone thought 100K was the moonshot. I'm getting the same vibe about $1 million. But anyways, that's not really what I want to talk about. That bit that he said, $1 billion 2032 will be like 500 mil or 500,000 purchasing power today. Yeah, maybe. Doesn't it take 30 years for the purchasing power to be destroyed or to be cut in half? I believe that's the number. So maybe it'll be 800K purchasing power, but that's not the conversation. I want to reiterate his point of what he said, and I think this is like one of the main points that I've been trying to get across to everyone. He said only 1% of global capital has been adopted into Bitcoin, hence why I don't believe in diminishing returns. Anytime anyone talks about Bitcoin adoption levels, it's like, oh, look, there's hundreds of millions or 300 million. I forget what the number is. I think it might be like 300 million, or no, sorry, I think it's 100 something million Bitcoin users around the world. And it sounds like a big number, right? But really, it's not that much. Even if it's 300 million, it's like, what? It's the size of the US globally. There's 8 billion people on planet Earth, supposedly. It's like not that many people hold Bitcoin. And further, I would argue that a lot of the people that do hold Bitcoin probably don't understand what Bitcoin is. They don't think of Bitcoin like we do. And this isn't a purity test. This isn't an, ideological test of, oh, you don't understand Bitcoin enough. No, I'm just saying that I'm like wholly convinced that most people that hold Bitcoin aren't revolutionaries like you and I would like to make ourselves out to be. They don't understand that Bitcoin is the end game. They're just there to kind of get some gains. So taking this in context, 1% of global capital is in Bitcoin. To me, that feels right. I say the same thing constantly, and it's a heuristic. It's not even, a fact. But if you go out and talk to people, most people don't know what the hell you're talking about when you talk about Bitcoin. Actually, funny story. I had a friend come over the other day. He came down to Miami. We hung out all weekend. He's a friend from Texas. And I had a passport on my coffee table, and he's just kind of scourging around on my coffee table, like picking things up. He's like, "Yo, what is this thing?" It's like if I had, do I have one right here? Oh, I don't know where the bit key went. I usually have it right here. All right, I don't know. It must have disappeared somewhere. But he basically grabbed the passport, and he's like, "Yo, like, what is this?" And I'm like, and he knows I'm in Bitcoin, and he knows I do this as a job. And I was like, "Oh, it's a Bitcoin wallet." It's like, what? Like, what do you mean it's a Bitcoin wallet? I'm like, "Yeah, it's a Bitcoin wallet. So like your Bitcoin doesn't hit the internet, and so you can send it and stuff." And I literally basically just said that, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and put it back down. And then he called me the other day, and he's like, "Yo, like, are you ever afraid of people finding your Bitcoin wallet on your coffee table?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, it's usually like not there. And second of all, even if people come into my house, they don't even know what the hell it is. Like, they think it's an old Nokia. Like, no one knows what the hell that thing is." And I only say that to say, if you talk to normal people, most people, one, maybe have heard about Bitcoin, but they don't understand what it is. And two, probably don't even own Bitcoin. Like, even if they've heard about it, they probably don't even have any. They're like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm going to go chase the SpaceX IPO or something. So we are still early in terms of people coming into Bitcoin, of real capital entering Bitcoin. But this does, what's the passport? It's a hardware wallet by the boys of Foundation. Hidden in plain sight, exactly. But this does lead to another thing that I've been wanting to talk about, and I'm absolutely in love with Fernando's Twitter right now. I highly recommend you guys go follow this account. He has been, I don't want to say contrarian, but I think there's a sobriety to his tweets to really kind of show, like, guys, let's not revolve our entire personalities around Bitcoin, but further, let's put this Bitcoin thing in its proper lens. And this take, I think, when did this come out? The 3rd, so almost a week ago. And I know I say it all the time, like, we're still early to Bitcoin. And I've actually been really thinking on this idea of reframing everything that I love about Bitcoin. And like I told you the other day, changing kind of the way I talk about it for people, not using the generic memes here. And I still get caught up into it. You know, I'm trying to think about a better way of getting more people into Bitcoin and getting them, you know, excited and involved, and not using just the like end the Fed, 21 million hard cap, you know, permissionless, censorship resistant, whatever. We're still early, because that doesn't resonate with people. And Fernando just like blew my whole thing open with this tweet. And he goes, Bitcoiners keep telling people we're still early, like it's a good thing. Being early in a multi-decade institutional collapse is not a flex. It means you get to watch the old system rot in real time while the replacement is still too clunky for normies to use. We are stuck in a chaos gap where the banks don't work, the media doesn't work, the universities don't work, and the alternatives aren't ready yet to replace them. That's not bullish. That's the reality of living through a transition that none of us will see the end of. It's the chaos gap. And I'm like, so on point, like so true, King, so true. This is one of those things, like it's so easy to say you're still early, bro. You know, I truly believe that diminishing returns will blow up here soon. Like just basic first principles thinking. I'm like, okay, 1% of global capital is in Bitcoin. Maybe 300 million people at the most are in Bitcoin. I don't think that necessarily we're just going to see, you know, 2x gains, 1x gains, etc. Like, how is Bitcoin going to reach at minimum half of the global capital, or even further lower, at minimum the $30 trillion market cap of gold? Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. Yes, we will see a slow trickle into Bitcoin from people adopting it, but there will be a point where we start to see the S-curve adoption of a new technology. And remember, the S-curve kind of goes like this, and then it explodes and goes up. We are still in the lower part of it, you know, and then it starts exploding. But I love the reframing by Fernando's. Like it hits on two things. One, I need to work on, you know, my framing a little better. But two, I constantly keep saying, I'm like, guys, you better mentally prepare yourself to be in this for a long run. Like, this is a multi-decade thing. You know, Bitcoin, even if it's 1 decade, are you prepared to be in the trenches day in and day out, stacking sats for another decade? Like, personally, I'm not going to lie right now. Well, maybe 3 months ago, or actually up until a few weeks ago, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. Like, I don't know if I can do this, boss. And then now I'm like, all right, I think I'm refreshed. I didn't even take a vacation, just somehow got my second win here. I'm sure in a month I'm going to be crashing out, and like, you're going to see me dying, you know, in real time on the show. Unless, of course, the price comes back, then it's all fun and games again. But I keep iterating that same thing. Mentally prepare yourself to be doing this for a while. Even if we get to $1 million by 32 or whatever CZ said, $1 million is still just the start of it. What's $1 million market cap? Would that be near gold? There's still a lot more room to run. I'm convinced of this. I am convinced of this. After the second cycle, it gets tiring. Dude, what about the third? No, it actually, it's funny. I mean, I've been talking about this a while. What an over dramatization. Is that me? Oh, no, you're talking about Fernando. Yeah, maybe. I can't take any more stacking. Let's go parabolic already. Let's go. I'm with it. Java, I'm not acting like I'm on the front lines. But this isn't a kinetic thing. This is a digital psychological thing. And I'm wholly convinced that the real war is psychological and spiritual. Like, I'm convinced that World War III is not necessarily has to be a kinetic war. I view it more as a psychological war. I believe we're already in World War III. I believe it's already happening. What's the I forget if it's Fight Club or like The Matrix or what have you, one of those movies, one of those cliche Bitcoiner movies. It's a war for your mind, dude. That's where we currently are. It's a digital prison for your mind. And I would argue most people are losing it. Yes, RL, thank you so much. I finally feel seen, man. I finally feel seen. Your job being a Bitcoin news reporter probably burns you out even fast. So true, King. So true. All right. Well, I was supposed to have a guest on today. He's supposed to be popping in right now. How about this? I'm going to double up the ads. If he pops in, he pops in. If not, we will kind of just shoot the shit. I'll bring up some other news stories. But he's supposed to be here. Maybe we'll do a little back and forth from the chat. So give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Hopefully our guests will arrive by the time I'm back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or hivedigitaltech.com.
You secured your Bitcoin, but did you secure your devices too? They're still broadcasting your location and digital footprint. GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, 5G, EMF, all of it is leaking. Escape Zone fixes that. Their Faraday bags block every signal your device emits, so you decide when you're detectable, not the grid. Built for Bitcoiners who know sovereignty isn't just your wallet. It's your phone, your hardware wallet, your keys, and your entire digital life. Go to escapezone.com/simply and use code SIMPLY for 10% off. That's escapezone.com/simply, code SIMPLY. All right. Well, we're back. I do want to read a couple of these comments on Rumble. Shouts out to Mr. Roboto. You're kind of killing it right now. He goes, the average person believes in meta stocks, so you expect them to get Bitcoin. So true, King. So true. Mr. Roboto, this comment too. We are witnessing a controlled demolition of the economy, not unlike the controlled demolition of our privacy rights on 9/11. Again, hit the nail on the head. We were actually going to talk about this on today's show, but I don't really want to get too far into it. But this is what we were going to talk about, and it does kind of lean into what you were just saying. So maybe Theo from Bull Bitcoin pops in. Maybe his timing got off, but French Finance Ministry sued over global surveillance database. The Bitcoin exchange Bull Bitcoin is suing the French Finance Ministry over its implementation of crypto asset reporting framework that establishes a global surveillance database of cryptocurrency transactions. So, Mr. Roboto, again, hit the nail on the head. Double whammy. Let's go. Perfect timing. All right, Theo, so glad you got in here, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, awesome. Well, I was going to just keep the show going for a minute because I'm like, I don't know where the guest is. And one of our comments here, I was just going to kind of go back and forth. One of our comments goes, we are witnessing a controlled demolition of the economy, not unlike the controlled demolition of our privacy rights on 9/11. And I was like, yeah, that's literally what we were basically going to talk about today. And so just to rehash here, great coverage from The Rage. French Finance Ministry sued over global surveillance database. Of course, Bull Bitcoin's at the forefront of this. So let's just get into the basics of what's going on, Theo. So what is going on in Europe? And let's just start with that, and then we'll unpack this as we go further.
Yes, for sure. So DAC8 basically is a European directive. So it has been voted by the European Parliament at the end of 2023, which gave until the end of 2025 for European member states to transpose the directive into their national law. And what this piece of legislation forced CASP, crypto asset service provider, that's how we call exchanges in the context of MiCA, another European law that's frame all activities pertaining to exchange of cryptocurrency. Basically, they forced DAC8 forced CASP to collect a lot of information about their clients, which they were already doing in some sense with KYC and stuff like that. But this goes even further because now they ask us to provide all this information to the tax authority of our local European country, so that this information be shared with other European tax authorities across the Union and put together in a massive database, which will be a horrible data honeypot. So imagine a big database with your name, identity, tax identification number, physical addresses, along with information about like how many coins did you bought this year, how many did you sold, like basically patterns of like crypto buying and selling, which to us creates a grave danger in Europe, especially for part of our team that is based in France and that have seen like firsthand how like $5 wrench attacks and data leaks are becoming prevalent in Europe at large, but mostly in France. And so it's just a matter of time before this whole database is leaked or hacked, or even that like civil servants sell this data, as it happened like in Italy or France recently, to like basically criminal gangs that will exploit them to kidnap, torture, and try to steal coins to users. That's the reason why we decided to sue the French state basically on different grounds to try to have this legislation, or at least the French version of it, annulled or amended in France, which in practice would mean that any European residents that would use French incorporated crypto asset service, such as Bull Bitcoin, but also others, even some of our competitors, will basically not have to have this kind of Damocles sword, this kind of risk hanging upon them when they are using this service, because it will nullify this obligation of data transmission.
Got it. Okay. Well, before we go further, Theo, what is their reasons for doing this? Like, you know, they always have a reason. So what is their like public statement for why DAC8 needs to happen?
It's to save the kids, of course. No, in this instance, the rationale is to make tax collection more efficient. And basically, you all know this narrative that like most criminal gangs and tax evasion schemes are predicated upon the use of like crypto, which is absolutely false and demonstrated as false by many different academic studies and expert research. But nonetheless, that's the pretext they use to push this forward, arguing that without this kind of collaboration and automatic exchange of information, it's so difficult for, let's say, like the Italian tax authorities to be able to collect information to make sure that Italian residents that will use, let's say, a German-based exchange are actually declaring and paying the taxes according to what they should do. Which is also, you can understand that as a symptom of the looming debt crisis in Europe, because especially in Western Europe, most European states are in shambles when it comes to public finances. So they are scrapping here and there to find new money. And it comes with a power grab, because you have seen, I suppose, like the news around chat controls, the Digital Service Act, in some member states also, like the laws about forbidding access to social network without KYC and stuff like that. You can see DAC 8 as part of this whole global global movement toward more control, more global surveillance, and of course they want to control the rails of information and money. So it makes sense from their perspective.
Yeah, I got it. Two questions came out of it, and one, just to clarify for myself, because I haven't been following along on the DAC 8 much. Is this a new law proposal, or this is already in place?
So it has been voted in Parliament in November 2023, I think, and it's supposed to be in place in the local law of each member state, so France, Germany, Italy, Austria, etc. However, it basically states that the beginning of the collecting period is 2026, and the reporting period will start in mid-2027. In France here, it's supposed to happen in September. So technically, we are supposed to hand over information about the transaction of our clients done from the 1st of January of this year to the 31st of December of this year. We are supposed to give this data in September, July 2027. But as you understood, we are fighting against this to have a chance not doing that.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Before I get into, exactly what Bull's doing and maybe how the audience can help and all that good stuff, how do they plan to enforce this? Is it just send angry letters and fines? Like, where are the pressure points that they are going to be able to actually enforce this happening?
That's a really good question. So generally speaking, in our industry, at least in Europe, but I think it's, in my experience, also the case in other countries, usually the enforcing mechanisms are banks. Because basically they have a lot of people to create new crazy rules every day, but it's really difficult for them to edit every crypto asset service provider and make sure that we follow every rule in the book. However, they pressure banks, because if you're a bank and you lose your license, basically you are fucked. And so we all need banks to operate when we do like fiat off and on-ramp. And so basically they leverage the ability of banks to like screen our like AML, KYC procedure, our procedure generally speaking, to make sure that we abide by the law by imposing sanctions on banks that will work with rogue exchanges that would not follow this. In this context, though, I'm not sure exactly how they want to enforce this. I suppose that there will be a combination of audits, like random audits and stuff like that. And yeah, basically, it's supposed to be fines. I don't remember exactly how much. There is a maximum. At some point, we even considered with Francis, like maybe we'll just like report nothing and pay the fines. The problem is that at some point it changed from fines to you lose your license, or even possibly criminal charges, depending on the country.
Got it. Okay. So They're escalating here. Okay, let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about the bull Bitcoin actually suing. Ripping a grid. I hope you're inside. That's very European. Awesome. All right, let's talk about what bull Bitcoin did. Now that we laid it down, we obviously covered that bull Bitcoin is suing the French ministry. Let's talk about that. So you guys just issued this. It's I'm guessing still in the process of happening. So the people can understand exactly what bull Bitcoin is doing and how they planted the flag. Could you talk about you guys suing the French ministry?
Yeah, exactly. So I need to explain a few things about how our constitutional and institutional structure worked in France. So it's not exactly as in the US with the federal justice court and the Supreme Court. We have a centralized state who have no different states and different jurisdiction here. And we have basically two different chambers that vote laws. And basically we have two different courts, you can say, but it's kind of an abuse because it's not really judges sitting on those. The Constitutional Justice Court, that would play basically the same roles as the Supreme Court in the US. And another one called Conseil d'État, State Council, which basically makes sure that everything that the government does is legal. And that's the second court, the State Council, that we have been appealing to. First with a simple notification, basically, that synthesize our line of argumentation, states which law we are fighting against and why we are doing that. And basically what we are saying is that, hey, Council of the State, basically there is a lot of irregularities in the manner that the French states enforce this and vote this. It's actually illegal for this and this reason. And even from an administrative standpoint, it's not done by the book. So we are basically asking you to judge whether this law is legitimate or not. The second step, which we have been doing now, and that is soon coming to an end, was basically developing the full argumentation for the legal arguments as to why. So imagine a 30-page legal document summarizing all the arguments that we want to brought to the State Council, explaining why we think this law is absolutely not legal in France. And there is another last, let's say, ammunition that we are using now, which is basically a procedure of emergency. It is something that we are also arguing to say that as soon as we don't have a ruling on the legality of the law, which can take between 12 to 24 months in many cases, we need to have the obligation for CASP in France to be suspended because the genie will be out of the box, because the yields will already be done if we allow this collection and this aggregation of data to already have place. Because basically my argumentation is that, okay, I have some legal duties as a corporation. I cannot do harm. I cannot endanger people. What happens if, for example, I collect this data, I hand this data over to my fiscal authorities, then they are hacked or breached, and somebody gets tortured, and then he sues me? Maybe I can be considered an accessory, maybe all this kind of thing. And so basically we are arguing that there is an emergency because before they give a ruling, if we abide by this, the data will already be in the nature, and so harm can already happen, even if we later learn that it's actually, the law is actually repealed. And so we are moving forward with this to try to have this suspended for basically the duration of the trial, which could be 1 or 2 years down the road.
Okay, got it. All right, awesome. Maybe you can't say it, but I know you're in France, so you don't have plead the fifth, but you don't have to answer it. How is it looking from your guys' perspective? Is it looking good, or you do I'm leading towards the question of, what can the audience do? So like how does it look from your guys' perspective on your case versus obviously like the government can do and say whatever they want and, you know, like kick you down, whatever they want to do, basically they could probably do. But do you guys think you have a strong case? And then it's going to lead into like, you know, why you're here, what are the calls to action, and what can the audience do out there?
So it's difficult for me to say because I'm not a lawyer first, and also because it's not all too clear like how these things usually pan out. Because as I mentioned in my introduction about like the French institution, separation of power here is weaker than what you will have in the US. And so you can have like a lot of good legal arguments and still lose. Because like these people are basically like they went to the same schools, they are kind of in the same like political parties, they did their classes in the same like high administration. So it's never like that easy to understand like what happens behind closed doors, and if like let's say like the law will actually be enforced in a like common sense manner. However, my team is quite hopeful that we'll have some success, meaning that at least we can amend the text to strike down a lot of provisions that the law makes, which would make this like way less intrusive and way less dangerous. And they are also like, they are not, they believe that we can even have this annual. However, absolutely not a certainty at this point. The thing is that also in Europe, we have different avenues and we are deeply committed on this. So if we lose through this road, then we will seize like the Constitutional Court. We'll go to the European Justice Court. There are many different avenues that we can use to at least delay, amend, or if we are really successful, amend this garbage of a law. In terms of what the audience can do, honestly, raising awareness. In France, we are also leveraging the fact that it's election year. So if we make a lot of ruckus about this, we know that it puts a lot of pressure on the legislature and on the Council of the State to not do some crazy shit that can be used by political opponents to argue against the sitting government. So that's one thing, like just talking about this, raising awareness. The other thing to keep in mind is that we don't want some kind of like a lobby or organization of different castes to help us on this, because we deeply believe that like it creates like interest misalignment, it dilutes the energy, creates too many like meetings and stuff like that. We just want to go ahead on, and we will pay that out of pocket. It's okay for us because at the end of the day, like if we don't draw a line in the sand, as Francis mentioned during his talk in BTC Prague, there is no going back from this. Like it's pointless to try to separate money from state if we decide to play by all the crazy rules that the state will invent down the road of adoption. And so honestly, the only thing that the audience can do to support us is raising awareness. And if you are in Canada or in Europe, in any country that you are present, like I would deeply encourage you to use our services to stack or sell sats. I mean, for those that have tried the Bull Bitcoin experience, I think it's top notch. And we are self-financed. We never raised outside money during the 13 years of existence of the company. So every sat that we make operating the platform goes straight to this kind of fights and building new products. Everywhere you are in the world, also, you can use our self-custodial free open source wallet. It's privacy oriented. It has a lot of like cypherpunk feature that you could like really appreciate. So that's already helpful. And yeah, I think that's basically it. I know it can be a bit frustrating. Like I know people would like to do more, but in this case, like that, we will take the fight head on.
Let's go. Well, shouts out to Francis and the whole Bull Bitcoin team. All right, I want to kind of like game theory this. So like say, like we talked about the positive, we're going to be, you know, very hopeful that you guys win this, that everything works out. But worst case scenario, if this does happen, what does it look like for people using Bitcoin in Europe after 2027?
So one of the things that we argue on the DAC8.com website that we created for this is actually that this law is kind of self-defeating. As we mentioned earlier, the motivation, the rationale to push this forward is to improve tax collection. But as a crypto user, or as a Bitcoin user, I should say, in Europe, if I know that the service that I'm using to stack sats will give my data to the tax authority so that they end up in this massive data honeypot, honestly, I will just stick to peer-to-peer exchange if I can. I will try to find offshore exchanges, to find basically different solutions to avoid having my data gathered and aggregated in this way. So I think that if we lose this, honestly, that's how it will pan out. I think that basically Bitcoin goes even more underground, because at the end of the day, I'm okay with the state fining me for not properly declaring my taxes. I'm not okay with my family being kidnapped and tortured by fucking criminal gangs. So I think, game theoretically speaking, as you said, it's completely stupid to push this law forward. And if I were to be perverse in the mind, I would say that maybe the hidden agenda of this is more to discourage people to turn themselves to Bitcoin, and especially in self-custody. It's kind of leveraging the kind of rampant criminality that is exploding in Europe, and that often goes unpunished, to try to get people to stick to the legacy banking system, to be able to better trap their means of payment, their savings, because as we mentioned, we have a fucking debt crisis, and so the money needs to be found somewhere. And especially in Europe, because we destroyed our whole economy with a succession of stupid laws like this, the only money you can find is some form of savings, as real estate, pension, and stuff like that. So people deciding to opt out of the system and deciding to get Bitcoin in self-custody, even maybe living off a Bitcoin standard, which we kind of encourage people to do at Bull, it's definitely the last thing that these guys want to see happen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just goes further. They can write all the law. We're kind of dealing with it. I started the show with the Clarity Act, and we had a couple of comments, which is when are you going to learn it's a surveillance act? And we're yeah, we kind of, I think everyone is kind of in agreement that the bill might not be good, but we're seeing that in Europe, you guys are kind of ahead of the game. And I was going to kind of throw in a joke, because there's a running joke that I dated Christine Lagarde from the ECB on the show. It's like a joke. But as you were going and you said, dissuade people from using Bitcoin, it really did connect there, where I was oh, wait, this is them just trying to usher the CBDC and the digital ID is hey, don't use Bitcoin, it's bad, but use what we got here. So what's your thoughts on this idea? Where do you think that this mandate came from? Is there a specific genesis point where you can for sure know oh, it was this person that wanted this to happen? I am thinking of Christine Lagarde here, because she's been so adamant about not using Bitcoin. But do you have that point, that exact focal point where this mandate was, or new law was created from?
So I would not pinpoint Lagarde specifically, first because she's kind of a tool. She's not really a central banker. She's a lawyer by trade. And she's kind of a political animal that we put in front of the TV. But most of the actual thinking is done by technocrats that you never see, that are in the background. However, this very idea of DAC8 is part of a global thing called CARF, for crypto assets.
Wait, I think I got it over here. Hold on. It's in this article.
Exactly. But the general idea that we need to better collect taxes from crypto assets. And this dates from 2020 to 2021. And I think this came from two different places. The first one was the 2020-2021 bull market, because Bitcoin and crypto, generally speaking, went from something that was in their mind a speculative curiosity to some really like meaningful asset class that could escape the regulated system to some extent, and that also represented a lot of like financial value that they could tax. And also because at the same time, we created so much debt to support the economy during the lockdown that they needed to think forward about like, okay, but how will we prevent basically the bond markets to call our bluff on this, because it's impossible to increase our fiscal revenue as much as we are increasing the fiscal spending and the deficit. And that's the like starting point of a lot of different like think tank kind of brainstorm and thinking that went into a lot of different proposals that we have seen implemented in different countries, as like how do you say, like when you tax latent capital gains. I don't remember exactly, something that was heavily discussed that they tried to enforce in Norway or something like that. We also had a lot of discussion to do that in France, a lot of different like eco tax and stuff like that. It's I think to me that was the starting point. It was like, okay, we need to think creatively on new ways to make money, as any like big company that is on the verge of bankruptcy would do. Like when they raise the cost of your subscription, when there is this added fees that pop here and there, it's basically the same idea, but for a state organization.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right. Well, you know, the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists in the chat were like, I wanted a crazier answer here, Theo. All right, Theo, to wrap up the show, I like to give the guests, you know, final moment to get their final message across. So what is the final thing you want to leave with the audience here? It could be about going to bull. It could be about, you know, helping you fight this. It could be about just the ideology at large. And the chat on Rumble is like, damn, Theo's so base. Like, I like this guy. So final message here. Rip it. Whatever you want to tell the people out there. What's the last thing you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I will really encourage people to understand the situation we are in. Like we have been focusing a lot at large in the global conversation and the industry over the past like 2-3 years about Bitcoin treasury companies, about numbers go up, about the scarcity of Bitcoin. All that is fine. I have nothing against it, but it's really important that we keep our eyes on the ball, because at the end of the day, this thing can only work with self-custody. We can only have Bitcoin succeed as this project of separating money from state and ushering all this era of prosperity and human freedom that we all expect to happen, if we decide to choose responsibility and freedom for our own self, which means self-custody, which means also understanding that things will get worse before they get better, in the sense that we are threatening a lot of powers that are already in existence and that want to remain in power and to have their grip on the flow of information, of money, on our daily lives. And these people will not like be defeated without a fight. So of course, we have all different situations and we are in different positions. And that's okay, because we need a lot of different people to make this successful. However, we need to be ready to go the long way, because just like buying Bitcoin and hoping that everything goes well, in my opinion, is not possible. Like state failure and like the whole like reshuffling of the international monetary order is not a picnic. It's not something that can smoothly happen and transition easily. And so we need to be ready to take the fight, to somebody like cross the line, because at the end of the day, like the law is the law, but if it's illegitimate, if it breach on your personal security, as it is the case with DAC 8, if it's encroach on your natural rights, then this law is moot by any legal conception in the West, and even by any moral conception. So yeah, I would that would be my message. Like don't be too complacent.
Love it. Great message to wrap up the show. All right, Theo, before we go, our audience is mainly in the U.S., but we do have an international audience. So will you tell the audience again, because I forgot where Bull Bitcoin is live. If you are not in the U.S. and you want to support Bull Bitcoin, or maybe you want to switch exchanges, where exactly is Bull Bitcoin live for our international viewers here?
Yeah, so first, like as I mentioned earlier, like the wallet is available everywhere in the world.
Yeah, the wallet's
on
great
Android
too.
and iOS.
The wallet's great too. I love the Bull wallet.
But regarding the exchange that you can also use in the wallet, once you have an account, you can use it from any European member states. So yeah, the 27 country in the European Union. You can use it from Canada, where we are originally from, of course. Also in Mexico and a few other Latin American countries. And in Costa Rica, of course, where Francis spent most of his time, and like where the Bitcoin jungle economy is built. And we will open in new jurisdiction quite soon after the summer, but I'm not in the position to disclose where exactly. But yeah, a new Western jurisdiction that you can guess.
Let's go. All right. Well, excited to see the next announcement. Theo, thank you so much for coming on the show and letting the audience know. I actually been iterating the same message for a while. It's like, look, I believe in holding Bitcoin for the long term, but part of that process is also we do have to get involved. Just holding Bitcoin and sticking our head in the sands, we got to do a lot more, whether it's us here doing propaganda, whether it's what you guys are, you know, going to the legal fight. I know we're talking about politics here, whether it's Bitcoiners getting into politics. Like, we have to get involved here. It is much more than just hodling.
If I can just add something to that, just
yeah.
spending Bitcoin also helps a lot, because that's how like people are actually encouraged to hold it, to spend it, and to create this kind of like network effect of, oh, okay, I can be paid in Bitcoin, I can sell product in Bitcoin, I can spend it. And that's how you unbank the banked, basically. So yeah, just like spending Bitcoin is already a revolutionary act, I would say.
Let's go. Let's go. Some horns for that one. All right, Theo, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We're backing you guys in this fight, and let's hope everything works out in our favor here as Bitcoiners. I think one of the things we usually forget is, like, Bitcoiners, I know we're all individualists here. You know, we're all about the individual, but we have to take our sides as Bitcoiners, and this is why we brought you on here, because Bull Bitcoin is fighting for not just, you know, the exchange and Europeans, but you're fighting for Bitcoin at large, and we totally back you. So, Theo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks.
I wish you guys the best.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for your kind words.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, shouts out to Francis, one of the goats in the space, one of the OGs. Guys, for the audio listeners, if you don't see the show, bullbitcoin.com, go check them out. Go check out the Bull wallet. It's great. All right, guys. Theo, thank you so much. I'm going to pull you behind the scenes as I wrap up today's show. Have a good rest of your day. Okay, guys, we made it through another day here. We are not done with the week. We have one more show for the live show tomorrow, 12:40 p.m. As you know, on time at 12:40. But we appreciate every single one of you guys. We love every single one that has clicked on our videos, that watches our videos, that watched 30 seconds of our video, that fell for the clickbait. We love you guys. The guys that hang out in the chat, whether on YouTube, Rumble, Primal, Twitter, all of you guys, we love you guys. We appreciate your support. We're going to be here during the bear market, whether I'm losing my mind or not. You guys will see it live. We will persevere through this bear market together. All right, guys. On that note, I'm not going to do the, you know, whatever my normal sign off is. Just make sure you are stacking some Bitcoin, taking it into self-custody, owning your own Bitcoin, and like Theo said, using that Bitcoin. Now, don't use all of your Bitcoin. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying, you know, let some sats fly every once in a while, okay? Anyways, I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.